Hi, my name's Kathy Bradick, and I'm the founder of the Turban Project. We provide headwear for cancer patients or patients who have lost their hair due to medical reasons, free of charge, all over the United States. I have many volunteers who help me, and I have a lot of people who sew and cut material, and they've asked for a video on how to sew a courage cap. Now, we've named these courage caps, and if you don't know what one is, maybe you've heard the term do-rag or bandana or skull cap. They're all the same thing, but we like the word courage cap because it takes courage to fight cancer and medical illnesses, and we want to empower the person that's wearing them. Now, a courage cap is 4 pieces of material. If you sew for us, we will give you the pre-cut material, and all you have to do is put it together. So it's very convenient. It's not a hard item to sew. It's a little, you have to do it in the right steps, but you can do it one step at a time, and it'll probably take about a half an hour once you've figured out the steps. You can find instructions for the pattern on our website, www.turbanproject.com. So I have my courage cap here all cut out. It's 4 pieces. This is the band that's going to go around the head and tie in the back. And these are the side pieces, and I've got 2 pieces here, one for each side. And this is the center piece with the point that goes down the back of the head. So we're going to put all that together for you. Now, before I start sewing, I always prepare my material, and this is cotton material, and it does fray. Now, I do not have a serger, and you don't have to have a serger. I just fold the material over so that it's not, the raw edges aren't showing. And I also pre-iron everything, so when I pick it up, it's ready to go. This is the band that I just showed you, and you see the difference in the width. And it's folded just like bias tape. So when I get ready to iron it, the first thing I do is fold the end in, and then fold the sides into the middle, and then fold it again so that it's like bias tape. So I've got that prepared right now. That's ready to go. Now the side pieces, I've got these laying together now. There's 2 here. One thing that I've learned, so that when you're sewing them so that they don't pucker as bad, is I make little 1/2-inch clip marks. And I don't know, let's see if you can see this. See the little cuts I've made? Those are going to keep it from puckering. And I make them about 1 inch apart from the top, about, a couple inches from the bottom. And then I iron first, and then I sew the bottom. So this is before I iron it or cut it. And this is after I've cut it. You see the cut marks. And then I've ironed the bottom because I'm going to sew that so there's no raw edge. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've done that with both of these end pieces. So they're both ready to go. And then this pointed one, I've ironed, I've prepared it. Now this, you've got the point on the end, but on the one that I prepare, I cut the point off, just about 1 inch of it. And that makes it easier for me to sew down into the point without having too much material there. And let me show you, I've already ironed this and I've got it ready, but you see my point is gone. I've got it squared. Then you just fold it over twice, so that is no raw edges there. Now the only exception I have, I've got a lot of people making these, and they all do it their own way, whatever works best for them, and that's fine as long as the end product is the same. There's one raw edge that I will have, and it's on this 4-inch strip on the bottom of the band, on the bottom of this pointed strip. So what I do with this one, so it won't fray, is I start with a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to zigzag it just to prevent it from fraying later. So I'm going to do that first. And I just take it down to that first fold where it's double folded. Now make sure you clip your threads closely to the material so that there aren't excess threads that are going to be irritating the patient's head. Okay, and I'm going to do the other side. Remember, this is the only raw edge that I have on the whole hat, and you'll see why I do it this way. This way works best for me, but I've got other people that don't have to do it this way. So you can always critique your sewing if it works for you. What works for you is fine. I don't have a problem with that if you're sewing for us. So I've clipped my threads. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do on the side pieces, and this is all prep work, is sew that place that I folded over on the bottom. I double folded it and ironed it so it wouldn't fray. And that should be a straight stitch. So I've got one. We're going to do the other one. And as you can see, the bottom is sewn, straight stitch, folded over. That one's ready to go. Now we're going to do the second one. And it's all of these seams are 3/8 inch seams. So you just line it up and sew a nice straight stitch. And clip your threads close. Okay, now we're ready to put things together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the long pointed strip and we're going to do the right side up. And then we're going to do the side panels and attach to it and put the right sides together. And a lot of times you get confused because you're thinking you're supposed to put straight edges together, but on this one we're going to do the rounded edge to this straight part. And it's a kind of a mind game. You think it's not right, but it is. So we're just going to line them up. And remember, I made those little cuts on the curved part to keep it from puckering. So we're going to start with that corner with the right sides together, 3/8 inch seam. And it's a straight stitch. So as I go, I'm just going to keep following this straight edge. Even though this one piece is curved, we're going to move it over so it's on the straight part. And that's where those little cuts come in, because it helps them to fold over. So you see we're going right around the curve. Nice and easy. Now I don't pin this, but you can. Some of my people do pin it to hold it still. I do find this way. Whatever works for you. You see we're working that curve down. We're almost down to the bottom. Three-eighths inch seam all the way there. And I stop right at this hem where we hem the end. Okay, and I'm going to clip my threads. And now we're going to put the other side piece on. So they're really pretty simple steps. You just have to do them in the right order. Okay, now for the other side piece. We're going to put right sides together. And remember, that curved piece goes on the straight side. So I've got it lined up. Got it looking good. 3/8 inch seam. once again, we're going to work our way down. There's not hardly any puckering because we've made those little cuts, and that's, you don't have to do that, but it does make it easier for me. We're almost down to the end on this one. And I always backstitch a couple of stitches before I clip my threads, and that way the thread doesn't pull and pucker. So I'm clipping these, and then we're ready to put the band on. Now, one thing, we have this seam and we don't want it sticking up and irritating the patient's head, because that's going to be on the inside. So before I put the band on, I'm going to stitch this down. And some people do it and they call it a top stitch. They would stitch it on top of the right side of the material. But I stitch it on the back side. It has the same effect. And then I can watch that seam and make sure it's not puckering, so it's not visible to the eye. So I use my presser foot to line up with the threads that seam that I just sewed. So it's right along the edge of my presser foot. And because it's a 3/8 inch seam, I know it's going to be consistent. So I just follow that. And I'm going to go all the way down, around the tip, and back up the other side, all in one long stitch. So here we go. And then just keep making sure that those, where you made those cuts, that they lay flat when you stitch over them. And I always kind of straighten out my material so that there's no folds or anything that get past you that you might not realize till you're done. It's very preventative. But using that for a guide keeps your balance, your stitching nice and straight where it's not wavy like that. Now this is where I get to the point where I did that zigzag stitch on the raw part, where I didn't fold it over twice, and I said it could fray. Because when I do it this way in one long sweep, it keeps it from, it makes a nice straight line, where before I had to kind of counter it off to the side, and I could see that jog in my thread. So this way I can do it and it just remains nice and straight. Okay, we're going to go around that little bit of a tip, the corner. And I've actually brought in my a little bit closer than the 3/8 inch seam. I think when I folded my material, I didn't fold it as wide. Now I'm at the point. It looks like I got hung up a little bit. Let me get that material out of there. Oh, I am so sorry, but we do have a little bit of a issue. I should have been able to go right around it, but that's okay. It won't mess it up at all. We're just going to go right back where we were and come up the point on the other side. Normally I'd be able to just go around it, but I did get hung up. Okay, now we're going up the other side. And we're on the corner, so I got to get it turned. Now we're where my zigzag stitch is, so I can have a nice straight stitch there too. And then we fold this over, and both of these seams, when you fold them over, are going towards the center, towards the crown. And now we're back to following our nice straight sewing seam, 3/8 inch sewing seam. And making sure that our little cuts there are folded down. We're almost done with this. Now we have a lot of men, women, and children who like these courage caps. They're cool to wear, especially if it's summer or you're in a warmer climate. They're very comfortable and they're unisex, so they work for everybody. We get a lot of compliments on them. Okay, now I'm making sure I'm getting all my threads cut so they're not irritating. And let me show you. We haven't got the band on yet, but you can see how it does the crown of the head, it makes a cap, okay? And you can see the double seams, how nice and straight they are that go up the crown, so that when you use your presser foot as a guide, it keeps your seams nice and straight. Now we're ready to put the band on, and to get it centered, that's the most important part, so that when you tie it, the strings or the band is even on both sides. So when they want to tie a knot or tie a bow, it's right. It's not going to be crooked. So the first thing I do is put a pin. I put these two crown pieces together, the two seams that I've made. So I know that's the center. And I'm going to put a needle or a pin right here at the top so that I can mark my spot for the center piece. Now I'm going to take my band and I'm going to find the center on it also. And all we have to do is put the bottom pieces together and run your finger down like that. And we've got the center on the band. And then I put a needle there. Then we're going to line our needles up. And we've got it perfect. So you see I've got the needle there. And I'm going to put this one so they're together. So I open up the band a little bit and fold it right over the top. So we've got it centered, needle to needle. Then I just pinch that, take out one needle, and attach it. Now I'm ready to pin the rest of my band. And this is one thing I do, is pin the band. I don't pin much of anything else, but I pin the band on the head part. So I just lay that in there. And if you've got it sewn nice and square where your band isn't, you know, you've got your edges together and they're real even, you don't have any problem catching both sides when you sew. If it's not even, you might catch the front and not the back and have to go back and change it. So let me get this pinned and then we'll sew it on and we will have our courage cap completed. There's a lot of fun materials for these too, if you like tie-dye or military or hunting or children's prints or just wild and crazy colors. You can do anything with these. And also the band is like bias tape, so you can actually buy bias tape and not make your own band, just use the bias tape. And I've done that when I'm in a pinch and I'm running short on material and trying to squeeze out one more. I can always use the bias tape. Now it only takes 1/4 yard to make a courage cap. So you figure when you get a yard of material, you get 4 courage caps out of it, and sometimes 5. Okay, we're almost done. And this is one, when you sew it, you line it up with, I line it up with my presser foot, so I have a nice straight stitching. Okay, now we finished pinning the band and we're going to sew it on, and then our mission will be complete. So I just start at one end of the band, and I always do, because I've got the end folded over so it's not raw on the end, and then I fold it into the bias position. I always sew a straight stitch across the end so it stays folded. Then I back it up, and now I'm on the edge. We're going to turn it around, and we're going to sew from one end of the band to the other end. And I'll pull out my pins as I go. Now, when I get to the very first part of the hat, and let me get a little thing here and I'll show you. When I get to the very first, this band is here and here's the first stitching on the hat, I'm going to stitch that twice just to give it a little extra security, so when they're always tying it, it's not going to weaken the threads. So when I get up there, I'm going to back it up, and then I'll continue. And always make sure your hat's laying out so that you don't double stitch anything that might get caught underneath in error. Now I'm stitching through it. Both sides will be hooked. If you don't have this folded and anchored good, a lot of times you miss some on the other side, so it's important. That's your prep work, why it's important. It'll save you time. Now when I do the Courage caps, I always pre-wash the material because it's cotton material. Sometimes it's a little stiff or scratchy, and sometimes it'll shrink. So before you cut the material, if you're cutting it, make sure you've washed and dried it and softened it. And then it's comfortable for the patients when they wear them, not irritating. We're 3/4 of the way done, almost there. Okay, now I'm getting down to the bottom of the other side of the edge of the hat where it'll be tied, so I'm going to back stitch it again so it secures it. So we're getting up on that, right there it is. Now I'm going to stitch over it, go backwards and then forwards, and we give it a little extra secure thread. Okay, gonna get real close to the edge. Let's see if I'm too close. Nope, I'm good. And I'm gonna turn it sideways so I can stitch across the bottom and back it up. And after I cut my threads, we're done with this Courage cap. Remember, always clip them as close as you can. And there we go. That's the completed project. You see both strings to tie. The inside's nice and flush and flat, and we're good to go. Thank you. And if you have any questions, you can contact me on the website, turbanproject.com. Thanks.